Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we discuss the astrological energies of July 15th until July 22nd. As this is the final week of Cancer season, and we have a lot going on with the outer planets as we move through the middle of July. So we will be discussing the bigger background shifts that are happening at this time, because you've probably heard that it's a big deal astrologically. But I want to make it more grounded and practical for you because honestly, it can be easy to sound like these transits are going to instantly change your life or something monumental is going to happen this week. And that's probably not the case because with the outer planets, the energies move slowly and they can require a bit of momentum in order to be felt and experienced. But what we want to do is to be intentional with our choices, our perspectives, and our willingness to allow ourselves to move into new life territory. And that's essentially what is strongly opening up here in July and the second half of this year. And so it's ensuring that your consciousness is tracking with these evolutionary changes, that you're aware that this is a time of participation in your own life, that these energies are occurring in very active fire and air signs, which are masculine ruled and are about what you're consciously creating and participating in your life that is supporting a rebirth, a renewal, a new beginning that honestly could not have happened any earlier in your life. And that's something that astrology validates, is that it shows us now is when this energy is the strongest and when we can work with it. So you could not have done something earlier this year, for example, at least not in the same way that the energies will be experienced in the second half of 2026. You might feel that you're finally ready to take a risk, be more courageous, be more brave, that you're ready to go for it, to make moves, to do something that's been calling to you. And perhaps there has been a lot of thinking involved, overthinking, decision making, even mental fatigue. But now the energies are ramping up and you're going to feel almost like a force bigger than you, giving you inspiration and motivation to take a risk, put yourself out there, assert yourself, move in a direction that you're feeling energetically aligned with, even though you don't have the full story, all the information, or all the details. This is actually the beginning of some of the greatest stories. This could be something that you're sensing has beautiful potential. It's uplifting. It is offering you more than you can see right now. And that is a beautiful gift. There can be a lot of anticipation, a lot of energy brewing beneath the surface or behind the scenes. And that's basically the universe giving you green lights, giving you the nudge forward, the validation, and the divine timing of it all. And so when we talk about divine timing, sometimes it sounds passive, like you're just supposed to sit and wait and see what shows up in front of you. But these energies, again, are about you showing up for your own life. How are you taking action to be the main creator of your reality? Because this is the energy that says it's go time. And maybe for some, again, you're realizing, okay, Molly, but I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. And then you feel pressure, right? You feel pressure here in July to be like, well, I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss my window of opportunity or overlook something. But with the outer planets, you're not going to miss it. You really aren't, especially if you are energetically tuned in and your consciousness is aware that this is a time of action and new beginnings. It could mean that the new endeavors, new projects, new chapters are going to be showing up for you later this year. Maybe there's things that are going to be bubbling up during eclipse season in August. And so we're being primed right now. There could be this energy of how do you approach risk taking? Are you able to stand in a new courageous sense of yourself that you are worthy of having a life you love, that you are worthy of experiencing life with more greater trust in yourself, with more ease and grace, that you're willing to move away from the previous stories, the previous struggles, the healing lessons, the karma, the loops, the patterns. Are you willing to choose yourself right now? Because if so, that's where the green lights are. That's because these outer planets are fortifying us at an individual level to be rebirthed. That's because Neptune is in Aries, Uranus is in Gemini, Jupiter is now in Leo. All three of these planets in each sign are about your personal development, your sense of self-identity, your mindset, what you believe is possible for you when you show up to live life and be directly engaged in your own life force. And they're working with Pluto in Aquarius, which is the future trajectory of where you're going, of what is expanding you into new visions of what's possible in your life. This is where there's going to be new dreams that arrive that sound really crazy and bizarre because they weren't part of your mindset previously. We have been in a very big healing cycle, no doubt about it. And that goes back at least 15 to 20 years. I know some of you could say it feels like it's been my whole life. And so if so, that's valid and you should trust that. But essentially, for those who have been actively doing their work, actively participating in their own evolution and self-awareness, you've been healing, you've been very aware of what you've needed to transform. This is going to offer you some beautiful ways to live life in a new energy field. With your new consciousness, it's going to feel lighter. It could even feel quieter because your energy is no longer going into situations, people, or places that you've realized, I'm done with that. I don't need that in my life. That doesn't add value. That's not even connected to what matters to me. So you have to be willing to notice your own patterns and to be aware of your mindset, because you could be looping in to previous versions of self or previous timelines that you've actually outgrown. And it's realizing I'm wearing a shirt that's too tight, or I'm wearing something here that is no longer a fit for my soul's skin. And this is where you are being rebirthed actively and consciously, but now you've got to do something about it. You've got to show up in a new way in your life. You've got to stand strong in this new version of yourself, even if others don't get it or don't understand it. Now, I do want to address that there have been some comments on my YouTube page about this theme, and some of you have so honestly stated, there are people who are not evolving in my life. They are not growing, they are not healing, they are not changing. And the answer is yes, it's true. There are people you are no longer a match for. There are people that you're realizing you don't gain anything from the interactions or conversations, or your energy sinks around them, and you're at important choice points around what you invest in, who you invest in, as well as a point of spiritual mastery where you can detach and accept people for where they're at. There are people who will never evolve. They will never pick up a mirror and see themselves in it honestly. There are individuals who will not use their free will or their sovereignty to invest in personal growth or transformation. And these are the people that perhaps you're understanding. They're on their own path now. And this is where there is a fork in the road, and you are being guided to make new choices in your relationships, in your self-worth, in your value system. You're seeing it. And it's not to say that's easy. It's not. And it could be emotional, especially during July when we're still moving through the sun in Cancer and this Mercury retrograde in Cancer, which is going to be in an ongoing square to Saturn at 14 degrees of Aries. And this brings up hard choices, choices that don't feel good initially, but you know that for the long term, they're going to serve you and they honor your personal path. But there are emotional strings attached or there's something that you're feeling at a deeper level that you realize, I have to work through this. I have to filter this out. I also have to be honest with what I'm holding in my heart, because that Mercury retrograde in Cancer can be quite sentimental and nostalgic. And there could be a sense that, well, if I just go back to who I was, maybe this relationship can continue. But this is not a time of sacrificing your growth for others or holding back your true self and your higher path for anyone else. The energy is about choosing your own growth trajectory, because anything less is going to be something where you are sacrificing your truth. And it actually could be keeping you in karmic loops from the age of Pisces. And the age of Pisces was the previous cycle that the Earth was in for over 2,100 years. And we have a lot still in the collective field around the age of Pisces and what it meant to give up your needs and your power for the sake of others. It was seen as giving, altruistic, compassionate, and loving. It was ultimately a time to be in a place of forgiveness, acceptance, and connected to our higher hearts around unity consciousness. But as we continue to move into the age of Aquarius, we're meant to take that understanding of unity consciousness forward so that it embraces your authenticity, your personal needs, your understanding of who you came here to be, a deeper knowingness in your sense of self, and how that beautifully contributes to the whole without holding back who you are and what you need for the sake of others. And I feel that this is part of the theme that's going on here in July because of how the North Node is in its final degree of Pisces, bringing up the best of our hearts, our compassion, our empathy, our ability to understand one another. But then as that North Node moves into Aquarius, there's going to be new insights into how to use our energy and our spiritual gifts in a way that also directly impacts our collective evolution. Now, I did a podcast for you on Monday discussing the North Node in Aquarius, the South Node in Leo. So do check out that episode if you haven't already. It just gives you a heads up into some of the broader themes of the nodes of fate changing signs, but it's a part of the collective right now. And over the course of this next week, again, it comes into your ability to choose yourself, knowing that that is what serves others. And many of you are leaders in your soul group. You are meant to go first. You are meant to break the karmic patterns and karmic loops. You are meant to voyage in to new territory, to demonstrate new ways of living, to feel strong and confident in your sense of self, and to not hold back your own growth thinking that that's what serves others. It does not. Your rebirth and your ability to live life with renewed passion, joy, and inspiration is what is the leading force at this time. And so all of this is part of what's coming up over this next week. And so, as I said, we do have this Mercury retrograde in Cancer making an ongoing square to Saturn in Aries at 14 degrees through the final weeks here in July. And that means you might find that you're being called into your personal space and your emotional world to make conscious decisions that are uncomfortable at first, that bring up your emotional responses, maybe some things that have been lingering and unresolved. Mercury retrograde squaring Saturn in Aries is not easy, but it is about making personal choices that align with your self-responsibility and your own maturity. It's also about bringing in boundaries that are needed. And maybe those boundaries have been overlooked or overstepped. And now you're going to have a sense of, I've got to change this. This has to shift. This needs to be healthier for me. And I'm the one who has to bring in the needed change. So keep in mind that this is going to be an ongoing square, even as Mercury will station direct next week on July 23rd at 16 degrees of Cancer. It stations direct within a 2-degree orb of Saturn in Aries at 14 degrees. So do know that some things are not going to resolve quickly. You might have to sit in the unknown. You might have to sit in something being challenging for the rest of July. But then it will break free and loosen in August. So keep that in mind, especially mentally. There could be a mental perspective that's directly connected to the heart here that is pushing on you to choose yourself and choose what you need, even if it brings about disappointment or sadness. But there is a new beginning, again, that's supported here, but you have to let go of the past. Anything that's been lingering and unsettled is being asked to arrive at a place of acceptance in your present reality. Today, accepting what is, accepting what isn't. That ability to accept the present moment is a strength that Saturn in Aries is offering. And the Saturn in Aries is hanging out here at 14 degrees as Saturn will station retrograde on July 26th. So Saturn isn't moving very much at all. And that could be part of the influence you're sensing. Now, this is a week where Uranus in Gemini is making some exact aspects to Neptune and Pluto. And this is a big deal because of how slowly the outer planets move, and because when they exactly align through these aspects, we have some doorways opening up in the collective field, ushering in new understandings, new mindsets, new perceptions, an ability to see things differently. And I feel that this is part of the powerful influence that's breaking you free from previous stories, previous patterns, previous mindsets that have been limiting you. Now, on July 15th, Uranus in Gemini exactly sextiles Neptune retrograde in Aries at 4 degrees 25 minutes of Aries. Then Uranus in Gemini exactly trines Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at 4 degrees 32 minutes. And so here is Uranus in Gemini activating new awareness around your choices, ideas, mindsets, perceptions, solutions, and personal understandings that could arrive as a flash of insight, fast moving downloads. You could feel that something is cracking open in your mind and setting you free. That's what Uranus loves. Uranus loves the freedom, the liberation, loves to turn things over so you can see it with a new understanding. This is quite exciting and dynamic energy. This is also going to bring about openings in the throat chakra. What you need to say and express, what you need to communicate. You could have some instant downloads of what to say, what needs to be written, what needs to be expressed. There could be more of an ease as well, that you're just sensing that all the perfect words are coming through, or brilliant understandings are finally here. And there is support for, again, breaking you out of anything that has been too limited, too dense, too heavy. This could also be anything you've been spinning in mentally. You know, things you've been overthinking and over contemplating. How do I do this? How do I say this? How do I plan this? This energy supports a visionary understanding of what needs to be expressed. And it's something that I want to focus on at a personal level here because, yes, this is a big deal in the collective. There could be some big announcements and declarations that occur. There could be some beneficial statements that happen. This is the energy of positive development and advancing stories. This is where we could see some things that are worth celebrating finally coming to the surface. And that's part of what will be moving through the collective in some way. Now, whenever I say that, then there's always the people who say, well, I don't see it, Molly, or everything's really hard and everything's really intense and this is stressful and there are still wars going on. And all of that is true. Yes, all of that is true. Uranus and Gemini is also about duality. So what are you going to choose to mentally focus on amongst all of these paradigm shifting realities? What reality are you subscribing to? What are you choosing in your own personal algorithm? And that is a point of empowerment. That's also where you choose your mindset and you choose to understand things perhaps in a whole new way. Because part of what is going on right now is that these denser energies are going to continue, but they are cracking and dismantling under the weight of these higher frequency incoming energies. And so they are actually struggling. And as they struggle, they get louder. They get more disruptive and chaotic. That's part of an ongoing evolutionary cycle where the old doesn't want to die, doesn't want to be less influential or dispersed. But what are you going to choose that you're recognizing? This is where my vibration goes higher. This is where I focus on something that lifts me up and it affects my whole aura. It infuses me with new inspiration and shows me new directions and new opportunities to pursue. This is fast-moving energy as well, and it could be that you need to practice new affirmations, new perceptions, new belief systems. Practice it mentally so that your subconscious subscribes and gets on board. Because you could have the most beautiful affirmation that you're saying for 3 days, but if the energy isn't going deeper into your true belief system and affecting your subconscious, then you're going to sabotage it or you're no longer going to believe it. They say that you have to practice an affirmation for multiple weeks, I believe it's 21 days, in order to fully allow it to integrate and land. So there's going to be ongoing intentional work here in order to break free of any past belief systems or restrictions that you've been carrying, but this supports moving the energy forward, seeing yourself in a new light and in a new way, and then actively bringing that energy into your world. So for all the things going on in the world at large, this is about what you're claiming for yourself. And these energies, again, support you in being rebirthed and renewed, even in the smallest ways. It doesn't have to be something grand at first. Simply notice, what do I want to change in my life because I'm not happy with the results or I'm not enjoying this part of my world. I want something new and different. I want to be in a daily experience that lifts me up, that allows me to be more creative, peaceful, joyful, and alive. And by identifying that feeling, identifying what that would feel like is one of the pivotal ways you start to shift your reality and really embrace what is possible and what you want to claim. So as Uranus in Gemini interacts with Neptune retrograde in Aries and Pluto retrograde in Aquarius by direct aspect, again, July 15th and July 17th, your mindset is more important than ever. You're also responsible for it. So if you're spinning in loops and you are perpetuating old stories, that would be yours to change or not. But this is a time period that you may see or hear something in your internal dialogue that you're realizing has been on autoplay and is no longer connecting with what you want next in your reality. And it's simply that recognition that could be eye-opening. It could also be that you're hearing yourself in a new way. Because Uranus in Gemini is not only what we speak, express, and communicate, but it's what we take in and think about. In other words, it's what we're hearing within ourselves that is also influential. Your inner dialogue might be giving you some fascinating insights this week around what you're ready to change and do differently. Then on July 19th, Mars in Gemini is sextiling Saturn in Aries at 14 degrees. This brings about easier movement and developments for what you've been wanting to create and put energy towards. So this is a great time to work with various ideas in motion and to create a plan or process that can be implemented. Wonderful for planning purposes, great for seeing something that matters to you and then doing something about it. This could also be a day when you're making important choices. Again, July 19th, and you're saying, okay, this is more likely to work. Plan B is more likely to work than plan F. This is making the choices that can take you further and seeing things for what they are, which is always a Saturn influence. So again, good decision making on July 19th. Then we move into early next week, where on July 20th, Jupiter in Leo trines Neptune retrograde in Aries at 4 degrees 24 minutes, and then opposes Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at 4 degrees 32 minutes. And so here we have Jupiter in Leo activating and amplifying big desires, big influences, a lot of light. That Jupiter in Leo is supporting us in being courageous, bold, and stronger in our unique abilities and in our sense of self. But this is a very dynamic influence because we've been talking about this, the basket, the cradle influence that Jupiter in Leo is now bringing forward. And after Jupiter in Leo trines Neptune in Aries, opposes Pluto in Aquarius, it also exactly sextiles Uranus in Gemini on July 21st. So this means that what Jupiter is bringing up within each of us is an important message at this time, because Jupiter in Leo is going to amplify something in your sense of self that you can't deny, you can't ignore, and is meant to shine brightly. It's meant to come to your conscious awareness, be integrated into your solar plexus and your heart, giving you more courage and strength to create, to love, to shine, and to feel empowered. But this energy is very dynamic because even though Jupiter in Leo is interacting favorably with Neptune retrograde and Uranus, there is that opposition to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at 4 degrees that is the strongest influence. And so this brings us into understanding the push-pull of power dynamics that are very strong on the planet. And one way to illuminate these themes and to bring it into more of our understanding is to look at previous cycles when Jupiter in Leo opposed Pluto in Aquarius. And the most obvious example was back in 1789 when we had this opposition last. And in 1789, that was the beginning of the French Revolution. And it was also when the United States federal government was being newly established. And so think about the themes here, because Jupiter in Leo is royalty, celebrities, those who are shining bright, who are in the spotlight. It's those who are very visible and seen. And then we go to the other side of the opposition, which is Aquarius, and that's about the collective, the audience, the group, the mainstream. It's about the people. And with Pluto in Aquarius, it's bringing up the systems that support the people versus Jupiter in Leo, those who hold power, how they use their power, what is the cost, what is the pushback. And so here we have, over the course of this next week, big themes about the right use of power that benefits the many versus the few, where there is unperceived privilege or power dynamics that filter out the collective. This is where the world is moving into a new understanding of what serves humanity versus what has only served the elites or those who have access to power and power systems. Now, when we go back to 1789, you can track how this energy unfolds over months, over years. But it was the beginning of these themes that came to light. So things that had been brewing and bubbling behind the scenes and under the surface suddenly reached a breaking point, and they became very obvious. Whatever was not honest or true was also brought to the light, and this brings up crisis and chaos. And so the opposition between Jupiter and Leo and this Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is meant to trigger catalytic understandings that bring about important long-term change. And so that unfolds over months, and years. So keep in mind that even though these energies are coming in strongly now, we're going to continue to see them play out over the long term. We're going to see changes in our governments, in our systems of power. We're going to see things changing, though, that's very different than even referencing back to 1789, because we know how different our modern lives are with technology, with AI, with different even cults, hidden societies, people behind the scenes who have a lot of power. There's going to be a lot of exposés. There's going to be more that is revealed about how things are actually working and operating behind the scenes that's been hidden from the people. And not only is this energy strong right now, it's getting stronger throughout July, especially as we get to the Aquarius full moon, where the sun is exactly conjunct Jupiter at 6 degrees of Leo, and the moon is conjunct Pluto at 6 degrees of Aquarius. So over the next 2 weeks here, we're meant to be seeing things with fresh eyes. It actually is interesting when you bring in the AI influence, because we know there's a lot of AI slop, right? A lot of these fake videos, a lot of things being manipulated, a lot going on behind the scenes to use AI to one's advantage or to support certain agendas. Essentially, we're at the point where, is anything I'm seeing online real? Are any of these pictures legit? Or are they all manufactured and manipulated? And so I think that what we're going to see here with this Jupiter and Leo opposing Pluto and Aquarius opposition is something being strongly revealed around AI and the technologies that are in play in our lives, and even bringing about new boundaries, restrictions, and limitations that support the people more than those who make the choices. So this can directly relate to those who are running Claude, ChatGPT, Google Gemini. I believe it's going to be these bigger technology conglomerates that are going to be experiencing this opposition. And big tech is on the front lines here, but it also brings in other industries and influential companies that gain from all the data, how they're using all the data to benefit their bottom line in ways that the public isn't aware of. This would include pharmaceutical companies, travel companies, including airlines and transportation companies. This extends to all forms of personal data being used for surveillance purposes. And so not only is it the actual data, but it's how it's all being collected, used, and then who it's being sold to, how that information is being passed on behind the scenes, who has access to it, where it's going, how it's being used. And all of this data, if you look at it from a very broad perspective, gives you an idea of where humanity is at, how humanity is evolving, what our basic survival needs are, how we spend our time, our days, our hours, what is going on in our personal psychology, what worries we have, because I know that a lot of people use these AI apps such as Chat and Claude for problem solving, for solutions, for advice. All of that data is providing an understanding of where we're at collectively and where is it going. And this is where we can then bring in how all this information can not only be sold and used for various purposes, but it can also be used to communicate with galactic beings, with cosmic entities who can be benevolent and supportive of humanity, as well as those on the other side of the spectrum who have a more harmful agenda. And so the revolution of our times is not going to be perhaps as visible as storming the Bastille fortress or marching out to Versailles to overthrow the royal family, but the astrology tells us that this is a time of drastic global changes that advance us into new uncharted territory. And we have to be aware of what is contributing to this revolution that's very relevant and important at this time. I do believe that, again, that Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is going to bring up the use of data, behind the scenes power players, those who are even like pulling the strings, the elites, those who are manipulating the masses. It's going to bring up even more around what has been hidden and what hasn't been dealt with, where there haven't been consequences. There hasn't been justice against those who have done harm against humanity. There is a push for people to be held accountable and responsible for their choices, their actions, and their behaviors. And that push comes from the collective, comes from those who are saying, this is not acceptable. We're not tolerating this anymore. We do not want this to be a part of our reality or a part of our world. And so part of the drastic turning point here is that there are going to be more people who come to light and who are exposed for what they have participated in, what they have signed off on, and where they have made secretive investments and secretive agreements that are meant to now be seen. So I do believe this is also going to extend into financial markets, into, again, pharmaceuticals, into big tech, into what's really going on beneath the surface of the ongoing wars on our planet, which are actually more galactic than they are being revealed to be. On that note, I wanted to ask you if you have felt any type of significant energy shift throughout July so far. Have you felt your nervous system has been calmer or more settled? Have you felt that maybe you've been getting better sleep, or that your body is able to relax and decompress better? Have you felt any changes in your relationship to time, the time you've had in a day, your ability to handle your everyday tasks and responsibilities? Have you felt that anything has been less stressful, maybe, or perhaps you have less pressure or intensity that you're feeling? I know that won't be the case for everyone, but I wanted to bring it up because at the end of June, on the Capricorn full moon on June 29th, CERN shut down the Large Hadron Collider for 4 years. The collider is a scientific machine used to smash subatomic particles and to study what happens during these high energy crashes. It's also known to be a massive particle accelerator that brings two opposing particle beams together to see what happens when they collide. And so essentially, with this machine now closed and shut down for 4 years, these energies are no longer impacting the collective field. They are explaining this as an upgrade project, as they upgrade the facility into the high luminosity collider, which will increase the collisions by a factor of 10 when it starts in 2030. But essentially, this is a machine that is not operating for the next 4 years. And it is something that has impacted the energies we have felt on the planet, whether it's conscious or not. You're probably going to hear all kinds of theories about it, whether that is how it's been impacting timelines and merging energies, as well as if it has been important in the mandala effect or collective deja vu experiences. And so that is something for each person to determine or figure out on their own. But essentially, with this machine now shut down for 4 years, what I've been receiving is that this was actually part of the negotiations with galactic beings, that this machine needs to be shut down in order for humanity to organically grow and to naturally accelerate our consciousness, and that this is something that has been impacting our auras, our energy systems, and our well-being beyond what is documented or released. And so the information I've been receiving from my galactic contacts and guides is that this was something that needed to be shut down for humanity's best and highest good at this time, again, so that we can be in our more organic, natural state to ascend and to be directly connected to a clearer state of consciousness. Now, on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist that includes channeled messages, and it includes a variety of messages I've shared with you through the years, including how you are the pyramids now. You are the pyramid who is receiving and experiencing higher frequency energies while being grounded in this reality. So do check out that playlist on YouTube if you want more of these messages and more understandings, perhaps, that may support you at this time. And as always, take what resonates. Don't force it if it's not your interest or if it doesn't resonate for you. But this is also about us having a higher consciousness and higher expanded view of what's going on the planet, and how, of course, our planet interacts and relates with other planets, other star systems, and other beings in the galaxy. That is a big part of the revolution of energies that we're moving through now. That's also what's being highlighted here during these rare outer planet configurations this week, where we're evolving our perceptions to know that, of course, we're not the only ones in this solar system or in this galaxy. And we're going to have even more stories revealing the truth around events on Earth and what has been covered up. So that is, of course, an exciting topic for another time. But getting back to this week's astrology, we have big developments in play and unfolding. Perhaps you're already feeling it and sensing it in your own world. And ideally, the astrology validates what you're already moving and feeling. Now, one more transit to share with you, and that's on July 22nd, when the sun enters Leo at 3:13 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is when the sun moves out of the watery, intuitive, loving realms of Cancer and enters into those Leo energies that are here to help you shine, create, and be more bold in what you desire. This is an activation of greater consciousness. The sun is traveling behind Jupiter in Leo, so these energies have already been in play. You've already perhaps been feeling something new you want to create or experience. This could also be amplifying your heart space, allowing you to expand what you love, what you enjoy, what you want to have in your daily experience, especially because you feel a strong magnetic pull towards it. And it can certainly support relationships, love, dating, and mating. It also supports children, both your inner child and creation of children. And so this sun in Leo is going to bring alive even more that Jupiter in Leo has been introducing you to, but it could feel that things now start to click and land because the sun's consciousness shines on it and brings it to your personal state of, I want this, I want this. That's one of the things that the sun in Leo is very clear about. So there will be a shift again as the sun enters Leo on Wednesday, July 22nd. We will talk more about that on next Wednesday's show. I also want to give you a heads up on a programming note that I will not have a podcast on Monday, July 20th. No podcast next Monday, but you will have one next Wednesday. And on a final note, I want to say thank you to every single beautiful soul who was at the Seattle Crystal Pyramid Astrology Workshop on Sunday. It was such a delight to say hello, to hug, to hear more about your astrology journey and where you are right now. We had a beautiful July day in Seattle together, and it was an experience where time seemed to fly by, but I'm so grateful for all of you who made time to be there, including the wonderful people who flew in from out of state simply to be in the experience and to contribute. A shout out to Maria, Sinova, Vanessa, and Lauren for their lovely presence at the workshop as we experienced the high vibrational frequencies of Seattle. So Seattle is actually an area on the planet that has a lot of visionary intelligence, elemental power, and multidimensional awareness. Seattle is actually a cosmic conduit of vision, innovation, and energetic transmission. And that's because there are many influential companies that are based in Seattle. Seattle is known globally for being the headquarters of Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing, Costco. A lot of forward-thinking systems are born, initiated, and tested in Seattle. And so this brings about an energetic space that allows for visionary downloads to be made real. from a galactic perspective, Seattle supports these downloads of advancing humanity and advancing consciousness. It also sits in a very powerful location where we work with water, sky, and mountains. There's also active volcanoes in the area with nearby Mount Rainier and then Mount St. Helens on the other side of the state. And of course, it's also working with the power of the ocean. A lot of movement occurs in Seattle, similar to Portland, where Portland also holds a very high vibrational earthly presence. Seattle can become a place of translating dense energies into higher form, as well as receiving insights that support one's healing, especially with the strong trees, mountains, and water element all present here. Seattle is also a location that supports sharing your frequency and to send your work out into the world. So this is where you can have an impact beyond just your immediate environment. Of course, every location on the planet holds very special energies and their own signature frequencies, but it was wonderful to be in Seattle. And basically, I'm just so grateful for this community. I'm so grateful to connect with each of you in person and to share not only how astrology has supported you, but to remember that we're not alone in our journeys and that what you're experiencing is most likely something that's also being experienced with thousands and millions of other people. And that's one of the ongoing gifts of astrology, is that it validates our human experience by revealing the themes and cycles that we're in. So thank you so much for those of you who were there, and I'm excited for what's to come next as we move into the second half of this year. I will keep you posted on what is going to be offered and shared. And of course, I hope to connect and meet even more of you as we move into 2027. So as always, thank you for joining me for today's podcast. Again, there will not be an episode on Monday, July 20th, but I will have some videos for you on YouTube to check out. And I'll be back next Wednesday, July 22nd, as we continue to move through these big astrological energies of our time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you back here soon.